So Navin, let me start with you with just the recent trends that we are seeing when it comes to crypto crime. To what extent do you think that we are seeing shifts when it comes to scams and hacks in the crypto landscape?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that crypto crimes across the board globally, it's increasing, right? Crypto is a global industry. Let's divide them into two parts. So one part is individual. What each crypto user is experienced by himself or herself is, if as per FBI, into 2023, $5.6 billion were lost by individuals in crypto crimes. And these are investment scams, romance scams. A lot of us keep getting calls as people impersonating as tech help workers, police in some cases, CID in some cases in this region, to essentially then for the crypto crimes to happen. And people are fed up. So this is a very large number. And then there is an institutional side where protocol hacks are happening, where some state actors like North Korea are essentially coming in a very, very sophisticated manner, hacking protocols, hacking exchanges, hacking a lot of virtual asset service providers. So that is happening in a big way. And on the first side, if you look at the retail, they're becoming very sophisticated. There are compounds in Southeast Asia, as you would have heard about it, and they have a SOP. These are almost like multinational organizations who essentially go through point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know, the pathetic thing is that a lot of time they're targeting people who are older, right? So particularly, and they're using vulnerabilities like romance scam or first gaining their trust and then siphoning off the money. And I think that's quite terrible, but it's happening at scale, and we should overcome it through a number of ways, including education, including lots of work that we're doing with institutions.
I think that's a good point. I want to focus on exactly on the romance scams you mentioned, because a lot of time when we talk about these scams, they have nothing to do with crypto. It just happens the payment is actually done in crypto. Do you really believe this is something that crypto industry can do something on it? Or it's more a general education that needs to be done on hacks and actually scams more generally?
Yeah. So I would put them in 3 stages. So the first is recruitment of the victims mostly happen through social media, right? So it'll be a social engineering effort, and lots of time these people have got a lot of information on the individual before they approach them. So they understand their psychographics, what stage they are in, are they recently widowed, or like whatever has happened in their life, and essentially use that to gain their trust. So in that case, I think the prime responsibility goes with social media companies and the government to make sure that people feel safe, right? The second step is when the first victim's been attacked, because they are working with hundreds of victims at the same time, right? So for example, an individual sitting behind the computer, first victim has fallen prey, then we can come in with VAS, with the regulation, with the regulators to essentially make sure that hundreds of others don't fall prey to exactly the same scheme. And we work, for example, with institutions to identify wallet addresses, which is like bank accounts, to essentially then make sure that these addresses are then marked as scams so that no more money can essentially flow into these wallet addresses, right? And then the third, of course, is to take down some of these large compounds or institutions that are working behind it and making sure that you raise the price for the scammers. And that, of course, law enforcement needs to come in and do its job.
So if we talk about certain forensic tools that you can use at Crystal Intelligence when it comes to fighting crypto crimes, what kind of advancement are we seeing when it comes to different forensic tools that you can use?
So firstly, we are every day developing state-of-art technology to make sure that we are much, much ahead versus the scammers, right? But I would say it's an evolving field. At T is equal to 0, today we are ahead of them, but they are innovating as well. They're constantly figuring out, hey, how companies like Crystal Intelligence are working, how law enforcement is working, and they're innovating. And so our constant aim is to improve. So for example, there is one technique called as mixing, right? Through which you're essentially able to not know where the source of funds have come from. But again, we have a number of demixing techniques, for example, where we are able to reverse engineer and find out where the source of funds came from. But it's a cat and mouse game. The key is for us to invest in R&D and to make sure that we stay ahead. And also there is a lot of public-private partnership. Like for example, here in the UAE, we have a partnership with Dubai Police. Dubai Police, of course, is one of the top technology law enforcement agencies in the world. And they partner with private companies like ourselves so that we are able to then provide the technical backbone to make them successful. So it's the combination that makes the world a safer place.
It's very interesting. I mean, you mentioned R&D, and I mean, when it comes, obviously, there's a lot of technologies now where you guys are apparently able to trace mixers to a certain extent. What's happening on privacy coins? Obviously, Monero and other coins are banned on many exchanges, but there's obviously still a lot of usage. Do you believe there will be a time where we will be able to trace privacy coins, or as their name states, they'll remain private for some time?
Yeah. So again, I will go back to what I said earlier. Privacy coins also have their own vulnerabilities, right? And we are able to look at that and then see, in some cases, are able to figure out how privacy coins need to be traced. But again, it's a cat and mouse game. One thing I would say that. The second thing that I would say, like you rightly said, regulation needs to play a big part where as privacy coins get banned, there is no liquidity in there. So even if somebody's using a privacy coin, they can't convert that into fiat. And that's another way you disincentivize scammers from using privacy coins. So what we see that actually the volume on privacy coins have fallen significantly and primarily moved to BTC and to stable coins, because that's where liquidity is and that's where scammers want to go.
So let me ask you this. What kind of advice can you give our audience when it comes to protecting against this type of crime? And especially that now we have a lot of technology advancements happening. And so it's entering our life in ways that we didn't see in the last decade.
100%. So I would say three things. Firstly, if it's too good to be true, it isn't, right? So just
really simple.
Absolutely the basic instinct, somebody saying, hey, I'll 10x your money, give me your money, I'll double your money, or there's some odd person who doesn't know you is reaching out to you for romantic discussion, right? So again, if it's too good to be true, just be careful. And this is just normal advice. Lots of people fall into this because of greed as well. We have to be honest, right? So the greed gets better of them. The second thing is use regulated platform. Here in the UAE, lots of places around the world, there is a regulated framework, which means that these institutions are taking steps. They are working, for example, with institutions like us to make sure that the customers are protected. And the third, I would say, is that essentially 100% make sure that the institution that they're working with has taken those steps. So for example, I would say insurance, like one idea would be they need to ask their provider to make sure that the customer funds are insured. So even if tomorrow they get lost, they're at least able to get part or full money back.
That's super interesting. You mean all these girls are contacting me on social media are not real? Oh my God. One last
news for you.
Exactly. I thought that was great. One last point, and quickly, is on North Korea. We heard there's obviously North Korea as a state actor, you mentioned that before, is a big player. To what extent is really North Korea dominating in the space when it comes to hacking, when it comes to crypto?
Yeah. So I would say North Korea is a dominant actor, and the full scale or extent of their operations is not known, right? Because again, some cases we are able to crack along with others, some cases you're not able to. But when a state actor gets into it and marshals the resources of a state, then of course, it becomes quite difficult. And I would also say there are some other actors as well alongside them, and it is difficult. Again, it's a cat and mouse game. And state actors is something that needs to be looked at more at a country level, at a sovereign security level. And of course, as a technology provider, we would work with the governments to make sure that the least amount of damage gets done.
Are your children prepared for the future of money? Order Decoding Crypto with Henri and Hodler, the #1 new release kids book on Amazon.